Okay, everybody. So my name is Kenny Seawright. I'm the newest member of State Support Team Region 2. My job or position at State Support Team Region 2 is the Career Technical Planning District Consultant. And I'm here today. I got picked, lucky enough, to open up our IEP Happy Hour, the first one of the year. So looking forward to getting to know everybody, get to meet everybody. And today's topic is going to be Ohio graduation requirements and a little bit of graduation pathways. For those of you that have been around and have seen this transition, it may be a review or a refresher if you're new to your position or new to a high school setting. Maybe some new information for you. A couple of reminders as we go through this. Right now, we're on the slide for the sign in. If you could just make sure that you sign in, it's also linked in our chat. And then as well with that, a couple of other pieces of information would be that, just to know that this is being recorded. So at that point in time, we just ask that, no district identifiable information as you ask questions or if you participate in the video session. So when we talk about that as well, if there's something very specific to your district or to your position, I'm more than happy to stay on at the end of the video. We can then end the session, and I'll be more than happy to talk in any help in any way that we can. As you come or encounter a general question or a clarifying question, feel free to post that in the chat as we go through. And, just looking to make the most of everybody's time today. We'll get rolling here. Make sure my screen isn't frozen. Okay. So once again, our goal for today is to provide an overview of graduation requirements and also options available for students with a disability to earn a diploma. There's my information there. There is also a slideshow link to these slides. So if there's anything that you wanted to reference back to at any point, you would have that, or if you want to, keep it for reference for future. Feel free to copy and paste that link. A couple of keys to success when it comes to Ohio graduation and getting students through that, and I like to talk about this to just kind of set a little bit of a mentality or a mindset. And, when it comes to graduation, it's teamwork. You have the students, you have the family, counselor, case manager, teachers, administration, transition coordinators. You can go on and on and on with that list, but it's important when we're thinking about graduation that it's that team philosophy, and it takes everybody to come together. I have that picture of everybody in the rowboat down there and paddling in the same direction, and that's what kind of helps frame it in for me. Another key area that I think is important to success on a student's graduation pathway is no surprises, and that comes with communication. So we have all these stakeholders, we have all these people that are coming together to help ensure the student is successful and keeping those lines of communication open so that as you progress and the student gets closer to that point in time when they're going to be graduating, that there's no surprises that come up, that everybody knows what the plan is and is able to work together to achieve it. So jumping into the meat and potatoes and kind of how we're going to go through the requirements. When you look at this, there's going to be a lot of links over here on the left-hand side. You'll see anything in the blue right there. It says Ohio Department of Education and Workforce Graduation Requirements link. Try to make sure that we link directly to the ODEW website for you to get firsthand information. As we go through this, you guys have worked a long day. It's the opening month of school. And at that point in time, we want to make sure that we hit a lot of the highlights and important information. But if there's stuff that you want to dive into deeper or you want to see directly coming from the original source, we tried to link that in there. One of the biggest things when we start to talk graduation is, there's three key components to graduation, and you need all three of those components. So course completion is going to be the first one, and generally you want to reference that to being your credits at that point in time. Ohio law outlines that at that point every student must earn a minimum of 20 specific credits or course units in specified areas, and we're going to jump into those areas in just a little bit. One thing to keep in mind, this is always the disclaimer, is that districts and schools have requirements that may exceed the state minimums. So at that point in time, what may be a graduation requirement in one district for courses and credits may not be in the same in a different district. And at that point, everybody's going to have the 20 and everybody's going to have the 20 in the specified area, but you do have the ability locally as a district to have additional requirements beyond that. As you transition to the second one, so that was the credits and course completion. That's our first one. The second one is demonstrating competency. And when we start to say competency, generally we're talking at that point the state test. And so we're looking at the English Language Arts 2 and the Algebra 1 tests. And then at that point, we'll be looking at some alternatives if students aren't successful in meeting the competency score on those tests and how we get through those. So we'll go step by step working through that. And then the third thing is demonstrating readiness. So every student will need to earn 2 diploma seals. So when we look at this, and then we'll be jumping in and looking at all of the different seals and the qualifications for them. So once again, from this slide, the biggest takeaway is the 3 components. You need all 3 of those components in order to earn that diploma. Starting with the first one, more in depth here, course completion or earning the credits. We do have it linked over on the left again. And then some of these links, for those of you that did copy and paste or open up the slideshow, this will take you to different aspects or sections of the slideshow. Once again, at the top, just so that big disclaimer reminder that districts and schools may have requirements that exceed this state minimum. But when you start to look at it, ELA, you need four credits of language arts. There needs to be 4 credits of mathematics, 3 credits of science, 3 credits of social studies, a half credit of health, half credit of physical education, and then also 5 credits in electives. And so if you add all that up, that's going to get you to your 20 credits. A couple of things, to look at as well. Down at the bottom, we do have some notes in there and we'll talk about financial literacy in just a little bit. But at that point in time, also the fine arts may not be required for students in career tech programs. So when it look at that, unless it's a component of the local coursework. So there's little nuances into each of these. As we start to jump in, we're going to take a look at a couple of the different course or credit requirements for some of these different areas, content areas. And when you look at it, the biggest thing to know about math is that not only do you have the 4 credits, but you also have to hit that unit of Algebra 2 or the equivalent of Algebra 2. There are some exceptions to that, which is, the computer science pathway that we do have listed there. And that can take the place of Algebra 2. And then also when you're looking at that, we wanted you to have that direct guidance and the direct documents. So in that link, when you're diving in, if you do have a student that is very passionate or is in a pathway or is taking classes that are high level computer science classes, there is the ability to use that substitution. For most of the students, they are on a standard pathway that the school counselors are monitoring through graduation plans and through the yearly meetings for scheduling to make sure that they're on their track to meeting the requirements for your specific school district. Jumping on to science, when we look at this here, you look at science. Computer science, once again, that second bullet point, it can be used to substitute one of those. But for the basics of science, you're going to look at 1 unit of physical science, 1 unit of life science, and 1 unit of advanced study in the following areas. And at that point, you have chemistry, physics, other physical science, advanced biology, other life science, astronomy, physical geology, or earth and space science. Once again, this is taken directly from the ODW website, just is there. Most of you, once again, in your programs of study, that's a good place to go to when you're really looking at your courses being offered and the course pathways. So most school districts have the course of study that goes out to all students. That would be one recommendation that I would make, is that when you get to scheduling season, which for most school districts can start anywhere from January into the early part of spring, is that get familiar with your course of study for your specific school or district that you're in helping with the graduation pathway planning. Social studies, there's 3 units or 3 credits that are required. Within those 3 credits, you need a half a unit of American history, a half a unit of American government, and a half a unit of world history. Most school districts that we see are offering American history is full year. Government could be split half year, full year, but within those 3 required units, you have to have those requirements for half of American history, half of government, and half a unit in world or civilizations. Um, Talking about physical education is one of the ones that has changed a little bit, over the years, that we did have the waivers come into play. So at this point, school districts do have the ability to exempt students who participate in interscholastic athletics. If you're a student in the marching band, cheerleader, for 2 full seasons, that would take away that half credit requirement that is needed for physical education. Another one that would also do that is that if your district or students are participating in an approved junior reserve officer training corps program, or JROTC, for 2 years, then at that point in time, they also would be exempt from that if they complete the appropriate paperwork that your district is looking for and follow that district protocol. Another one that has been added was show choir. So that is also a part of the PE waiver policy. And when you're looking at that, when a student does use the waiver, then they're going to be picking up a half a unit or a half a credit of a class to make sure that they make up and are still getting to the 20 credits for that. So once again, this isn't brand new information, but at that point in time, it is something that has trended into most buildings and districts, over the last 10 years. Lastly, from this side, transitioning to the electives, electives are going to be your world language, fine arts, business, could be career tech, family, consumer science. You have ag education, additional core credits such as ELA, math, science, social studies. So at that point in time, those are all things that you would be able to pull in for students to take to get a wide ranging education in areas that they have an interest in. One of the things too that the state, like I said, a lot of this is coming directly from the ODU website, or Ohio Department of Education and Workforce website. And at that point in time, they do recommend, or they do say that they want a disclaimer out there that many 4-year, institutions and universities, colleges are requiring a minimum of 2 years of world language study. So just a FYI, we did add that bullet. And then another one that's become more of a hot topic recently is the completion of driver education courses made available to high school students by the school district. And that could be implemented for up to a half a credit. So there was locally a school district that just was awarded a grant that they're now implementing that driver training during the school day. And at that point, you can substitute that to get a half credit of, participation in that to get that half credit of an elective course. Financial literacy, kind of switching gears here, before July 1st of 2022, you could have embedded it into other classes. So sometimes you may have seen that embedded with a government or into another either business or social studies type class. For students entering 9th grade on or after July 1st of 2022, it's going to be a standalone now. So as we're getting further away and transitioning to that, is that, it's going to be that half credit of standalone financial literacy to graduate. Once again, have 2 links there if you want more information specific to financial literacy. But ultimately, just trying to get the students prepared for making good choices financially for when they leave education. So that kind of wraps up the credits piece. Like I said, a lot of that is counselor involvement too, when we go back to the collaboration and the coordination piece of this, and a lot of that planning and graduation planning that goes into place. Once again, there are the three components: the course completion or credits, the competency, which we're going to jump into now, and then the readiness, which is the seal. So, going to transition to the competency, which now we're going to be getting into a little bit of the state testing. So when you start to look at this, you're going to be looking at the end of course exams at the high school level. And you're going to be looking at English Language Arts 2 as one of the courses, and Algebra 1, or possibly Integrated Math 1, depending on what the student has been enrolled in or is currently enrolled in. And that, I think, is another good point when people are starting to talk about tests, and this may come into play with transfer students as well, that you may get a unique case with a transfer student, especially if they're out of state. The student has to be currently enrolled in the class or have already completed the class before, they're administered the test. I know sometimes that may sound like common sense, but, it's one thing. Just a quick reminder, that the student has to have either completed the class or be currently enrolled in order to take this, the end of course exam for that test. Once again, for the ELA 2 and the Algebra 1, that's a score of a 684 or higher. So in order to be deemed competent, or meet the competency, I should say, is that the student would have to hit that 684 score. And when you look at it, it would be in both areas. So for the ELA 2, you have to hit the 684, and as well in Algebra 1 / Integrated Math 1, depending on the course that you're in. For the alternative assessment. So at that point, if you have a student with a significant cognitive disability and it's been deemed appropriate that student is to take the alternate assessment, their threshold is a score of basic to meet competency. And the numbers associated with that would be a 489 for math and a 485 for language arts. Once again, have that link directly in. So if you want to go into a deeper dive, feel free to click on that link and jump in there. One of the things that, I guess I would just want to, kind of go down a path of, okay, I have a student. My student has taken the course, and now my student is now going to be taking the test. They take the test. And what happens if they did not earn a passing score at that point? So what happens if they didn't meet the competency standard or the competency score? And that's where we get in here. So the simple answer is there's going to be remediation, and then the student is going to retest. So this is from the frequently asked questions portion from the Department of Education and Workforce website. Our school is required to provide remediation to students who fail to attain the competency scores. Yes. So at that point in time, remediation, when you look at this, looks different in every district, though. One of the things that's key to remember is that the remediation is locally defined. So that last sentence right here, so these remedial supports are locally defined. So that leaves it up to the local district to determine what does that remediation look like as we prepare the student to take the test again or retest the student. That bottom piece here is just some additional information. Once again, these are all links to different things that if you're looking to do that deeper dive, or at that point in time, go in for more specifics. Feel free to look around, but there are practice test items, there's release items, there's guidance and support for helping understand score reports to maybe funnel in or zero in on like what is it that the student struggled with on the test, and what is it that they did really well with on the test. So identifying successes or strengths and weaknesses. And then as well, looking at, the more information specifically for math and ELA down at the bottom in those bottom two links. One thing for those of you that are especially younger or newer to the profession or newer to high school, I think this is one thing that gets lost in graduation pathways sometimes, is that they're testing windows. So, for Algebra 1 and ELA 2, the tests are only given during specific times of the year. And those windows of time are defined by the state. And those are 3 times a year: is fall, spring, and summer. And so when you look at this, I'm just going to click on this link. This has the 24-25 testing dates. I think it'll be easier for everybody to kind of see what I'm talking about in here when we look at this. So if we're looking at the fall 2024 test administration window, you drop down here, fall high school end of course exams is that you have a 15-day window from December 2nd to January 17th. And so when you look at this, it also will give you the dates the results become available. So you'd be able to jump in the CRS or the centralized reporting system to see how your students did. Generally when you're looking at the fall testing administration, even though that does run into January, it is still considered the fall window. When you drop down here for the spring test administration windows, spring English language arts, which is going to be your ELA2 test, that window is going to be March 24th through April 25th. So your district's going to pick 15 consecutive days during that time, and you will have to do the makeups within that 15-day window. And then math, science, and social studies has a slightly adjusted window that's off by about a week, which is, March 31st through May 9th. And once again, with some of the newer laws newer law that has come out, there's family notification that's due by June 30th. So sometimes in the past, those score reports didn't come out until later. And at that point in time, so the parent score reports aren't getting submitted or sent home till possibly August or maybe even September. Now with that, the results are coming back into the districts, and at that point, getting the notifications out. There is a summer window here as well for summer high school end of course exams. But, one of the biggest things I just wanted people, especially newer people to the profession, to know is that, there's specific times a year. There's 3 times a year. I see a lot of districts focus on the fall and the spring testing windows. So most of the students are having 2 opportunities to take the test throughout that school year. So there's, a limited number of opportunities as you get closer, especially once again, not trying to beat the dead horse of a transfer student, but at that point in time, knowing when it is that you'd be able to administer the test. While we're on this down at the bottom, one other thing, and it's going to be back on the slide when we go to, is the ALD assess. So if you have a student that has been deemed appropriate for the alternative assessment, there's one window that is given February 24th through April 18th is when we would be administering the alternate assessment. So just having that information, at your fingertips and being knowledgeable to know about it. Once again, if a student's taken ELA2, that's generally their sophomore year. So if the first time after they take that, that's the first time they take it's in the spring. The second time that they would be able to take it is the fall of their junior year. And sometimes especially with possibly being absent or not being available during the fall, you're then looking, okay, how can I get that second time to take the test in to meet the requirements to go to an alternative pathway, which is kind of where we're going next. So if you have a student, they've taken the test, and at that point, they don't get the score that they need, and you're looking at they've sat for remediation. They then take the test a second time. What are our options now? And so what the state has kind of created here is that they are now eligible for alternative demonstrations of competency. And so with that being said, is that, there's 4 options that the student are available to them now that they've sat twice for, the state testing for ELA2 and Algebra 1. One thing I do want to clarify as well, because this can get a little bit confusing. If, let's say, a student got a 683 the second time that they tested in Algebra 1 or ELA2, at that point in time, it is okay for the student to continue to take the test a third time or a fourth time if they are close and they wanted to continue to do that. That's really an individual and district level decision, because knowing your students and knowing what's going to be best for them, because each passing time, it takes them further away from when they got the first direct, interaction with the content when they actually took the course. But at the same time, too, is if the kid is wanting and feels that that it would be important for them to continue to take it because they believe in their heart that they'll be able to get that score. It's okay for the students to take it additionally, the exams beyond the two times. So jumping in, there is the competency link right here at the top. It'll take you directly to the Department of Education and Workforce website to look at it. Option one is straightforward. It's ACT, SAT. So it has the ACT remediation free scores or the SAT remediation free scores and a link directly to that. The students don't need to take both the ACT and SAT, but it would be either or. They either get the non-remediation score for English, and English for ACT is a little bit different because you got to get the 18, and then you also have to get the 22 for reading, and then as well, when you look at the math, would be greater than or equal to the 22. SAT, the reading writings combined together, so it's a single test for the 480, and the math is a 530. I want to skip over option two for a second and come back to that one last, because that's going to be the one that at least from my experience, that you see most school districts when we're talking about alternative pathways, that's the one that we're going to be going to because it's heavily focused on career readiness and career technical programming. So let's go to option three, military enlistment. At that point in time, a student provides evidence that the student has enlisted in a branch of the U.S. Armed Forces, and at that point, prior to that, has completed the ASVAB and has a score on file for the ASVAB. With that being said, the link directly to that is listed there. Once again, there's specific paperwork that would go along with that. It wouldn't just be the student saying, "Hey, I enlisted," but it would be them actually having a copy of their signed paperwork and getting that on file with your school district and for confirmation. Option number four is College Credit Plus. And once again, it would be in the area that they didn't meet competency. So whether it's ELA2 or the Algebra 1, the ELA2 would be any possible courses that are in literature composition, journalism, speech, and applied communications. And on the flip side of that, for Algebra 1, it's any non-remedial college math course. So at that point in time, if a student is in CCP and at that point has gotten a passing grade for a CCP course in any of those areas that are defined above, that would also meet their competency for the test they did not get the competency score in. So once again, a quick question that comes up with that: do they need to get a certain score? Do they need to get an A or a B or a C? And the answer to that is they just need to have earned credit for the class. So they need to pass that course in order to get that. And, transitioning back to the one that we skipped. So when we're looking at career readiness, we're going to go ahead and at that point, you're going to demonstrate 2 career-focused activities. At least one of them must be a foundational option. So the career-focused activities are in 2 different categories. There's the foundational options, and then there's the supporting options. You can have both of them be foundational, but at least one must be foundational if the second one that student is going to complete is in the supporting options. And that's where we're going to jump to right now. So when we look at the foundational options, once again, just demonstrating 2 career-focused activities, one must be foundational at least, and we're looking at a cumulative. Number 1 is a cumulative score proficient or higher on 3 or more web exams in a single career pathway. So once again, that's going to be a career tech focused, pathway. So it would have to be where the web exams are being administered. And, it is the cumulative score or average when you're looking at that of at least 3 of the web exams. A lot of the programs, especially if they're 2-year programs, give 2 web exams their junior year, 2 web exams their senior year. I don't want to say that is absolute across the board everywhere, but that is a common practice. So, most times by the end of their junior year, most students in a 2-year career tech pathway have taken 2 of the web exams. And so you'd have a gauge or can have access to information to give you an idea of where they're at in that process. The second one is earn a 12-point approved industry recognized credential or a group of credentials totaling 12 points in a single career field. So as you start to look at that, there are different career clusters that are there, and each career cluster has industry recognized credentials that line up for that career cluster. And when you look at it, at that point, you can accumulate 12 points within that single career field, and then that would give you, one of the demonstrated activities. Or if you're in a career tech specific, you can earn a 12-point, single approved industry recognized credential. The third one, this one's a little bit more of an emerging trend in our region and in our area, pre-apprenticeship programs. And so you're seeing more of a push of districts, at least in what I've been in communication and collaboration, that are looking to get these set up. One of the biggest things is for the pre-apprenticeship program is that they have to be essentially an official pre-apprenticeship program. So there is a recognizing body for that. There's an entire process that goes through for that. You'll see a lot of them right now. Some of the popular, pre-apprenticeship programs are construction trades. You also have IT has become a hot one. Youngstown State has created a program that is has a really innovative pathway for a pre-apprenticeship in IT. So that would be the third thing. Fourth thing is obtain a state issued license for practice in a vocation that requires an examination. And once again, not to go too deep into the weeds, but there is a link if you want to see, hey, what are the state issued license and what are the possibilities with that? We do have it linked up for you there. So remember, at least one of these alternatives, if we're going to use option 2, which is the career readiness, at least one of them does have to come from this list right here, the foundational options. When we go to the next one, the supporting options, complete a 250-hour work-based learning experience with evidence of positive evaluation. So those that have work-based learning up and running, this could be a definite opportunity for you. A question that I know that comes pretty frequently to me is that, well, does that have to be done their senior year, or does it have to be done their junior year? And to be honest, when you start looking at this in the work-based learning, the 250 hours, that could be done over their high school career. So that could be a multi-year thing, as long as it's being tracked and being coordinated. The second one that we look at is the earn a workforce readiness score on work keys. So there is a link there to go in deeper into work keys, and that is a score of a 14 is the target that you're looking to hit for option number 2. And then the third one, which is one of the ones that is the most popular and widely used across the state, is the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal. Jeff McClellan and Ashley Spangler, out at North Point, has done an excellent job of really promoting portfolio and helping to, what they feel is going to be a great asset to, the region and the state, to be able to help track some of this stuff, including the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal and the activities that, the students would be doing. For those of you, we'll click on this real quick. The Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, when we look at the actual form, students are going to be having these different skill sets. There's 14 of them of the required professional skills on this side. The student would then fill in the evidence that they feel how they demonstrated that skill. And then at that point in time, the student's going to identify the whether that was in the school, community, or work. And then they're going to have a mentor that is going to be validating that. So students would need to find 3 mentors at that point, and the 3 mentors have to come from at least 2 of the areas where they identified the skill. So community, school, or work. So once again, 3 mentors and from at least 2 of the areas that are listed here. And then there's a spot for the mentor to place their comments. There's additional stuff down at the end after you have the mentor signature and the sign-offs. You have the student signature. You'll also have an administrative signature that comes on this. They do have a letter of recommendation portion to this, which is a step to go above and beyond to help, in that process, to show that they are ready to be ready for that next step of their transition. And at that point in time, there's also the career profile section, which is down at the bottom. When we start to go into the supporting options, once again, a student can do one of these, but they can't have both from the supporting section. So at least there has to be two career-focused activities. At least one has to be from the foundational. They both can't be from the supporting section. So, that's the key piece of information to remember there. So that is the competency portion. We're going to transition to the readiness now. So when we're talking about demonstrating readiness, that's going to be the SEALs. The SEALs are very straightforward. There are state-defined SEALs, and then there's locally defined SEALs. And each student's going to need to get at least two of these diploma SEALs. So all listed, on the chart here and divided up. At least one of the SEALs does have to be state defined. When we talk about locally defined SEALs, that is a local decision. So what is a community service SEAL, or the requirements for the community service SEAL in one school district versus the school district that's next to it could be two completely different things. Same thing with fine and performing arts, student engagement. And, so one of those things is it's important to know that there's not a one size fits all, blanket statement that I can give you for community service or what student engagement looks like. That's going to be a local decision that, has been decided by your school district. One of the things they do say as part of the state law is that it must be attached or affixed to the transcript or diploma. So you'll see on the transcripts now as they're getting printed, there automatically almost looks like a watermark or a graphic box, So as these SEALs, which are required to be entered into EMIS, they get tagged in EMIS. And then ultimately, I'm coming from a power school background. At that point in time, you're printing out your transcript. You can have that link to where if they've earned that seal then will then appear on their transcript automatically. So you're not putting stickers on every transcript that would be printed. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the SEALs. I want to hit them more at 1,000-foot view. If you want to dive in deeper, you're more than welcome. We do have the links attached. But by literacy SEAL, you're going to demonstrate, or the student's going to demonstrate proficiency at a high level for English and at least one other world language. And that's all going to be done by test. So it's going to be off of their state test for the English side. And then there are tests that are listed within the details that go over what the score that is needed for the student to earn that from the world language side. When we start to talk about citizenship, this is one of the ones. The citizenship has two separate options or two separate categories. You have to earn one from each of the separate categories. So the first category is American history. Get a final course grade that is equivalent to a B or higher in your American history, earn a score of proficient or higher on the state test for American history, earn a score equivalent to proficient on an AP or IB test in U.S. history, or earn a B or higher in an appropriate American history CCP class. So you got to hit one of those four for American history, and then you also got to hit one of the four from the American government option. So same thing, final course grade that's equivalent to B or higher in government, earn a score proficient or higher on the state government test, earn a score equivalent of proficient on an appropriate AP or IB test, or earn a B or higher for an appropriate American government college credit plus course, so CCP course. One thing to know, if you do have a student that is participating in the alternative assessment, they may earn the citizenship seal by earning a score of 457 on that social studies alternate assessment. So down here at the bottom, we have that highlighted. If they earn the basic 457, then at that point in time, you have the student that took that alternative assessment has earned their citizenship seal. College Ready seal, that's going back to the non-remediation score. So that's performance on ACT and SAT. The scores are listed. Honors Diploma seal. So once again, there's 6 honors diplomas that are able to be achieved. And at that point, they're listed there. With them, there are some new academic honors diploma information in the categories of how students qualify for those diplomas and in those areas. And once again, have that linked up. So if you want to dive in deep into the honors diploma, you'll be able to have direct access to that information. Industry recognized credential, you'll start to see some crossover here between the readiness and the seals, and then also the competency portion or alternative competency. So to qualify for the industry recognized credential seal, a student would either have to earn a 12-point industry recognized credential or a group of credentials totaling 12 points in a single career field. Once again, that kind of lines up with the foundational for the foundational career readiness for the alternative pathway to competency. Once again, the third thing is obtain a state-issued license to practice in a vocation that requires an examination. Once again, more information here, but you do see the requirements for that industry recognized credential seal, and you do see the crossover between the career readiness alternative. And once again, if the students hit it in one area, it can count in both areas. It doesn't have to just be that's for the alternative competency, or that's just for the seal. If they hit it, they've earned it in both places. Military enlistment, once again, another crossover that you see. So Ohio's military enlistment, and it's essentially the same information as before for the alternative competency, is that, have that show evidence of enlistment in a branch of the armed services, which is the identical part. And that's through the, by taking the ASVAB, and then at that point in time, providing your United States Department of Enlistment documentation, your Form 4. But then also one thing that they do add to this is participate in the JROTC program for at least 2 years. So if you do have a student or a program within your school and the student has participated in that for 2 years, at that point, they would then earn the military enlistment seal. The Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, once again, seeing some crossover. So at that point in time, they could hit two separate, they could hit the competency or a supporting aspect of alternative competency, and then also be getting a seal for one of their two required seals. Once again, kind of already hit that Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal. We do have everything linked up to the form for you to look at that. Science Seal. At that point, earn a final course grade that's equivalent to a B or higher in an advanced science course. So there are the options, the state list. Once again, this is pulled directly from the Department of Education's website, Education Workforce website. But chemistry, physics, or other physical science, your other life science, astronomy, physical geology, or other science, and also an AP or IB, Earth, Life, or Physical Science course. You also can earn a score proficient on the Ohio State's biology test. So once again, students' performance on the biology test. And then third, earn a score equivalent to proficient on an AP or IB science test. And then lastly, earn a B or higher in a CCP course, science course. Once again, similar to the citizenship seal all the way down at the bottom, students that do participate in the alternative assessment that are taking the science alternative assessment, they need to score a 430. And if they do hit a 430 or higher, then at that point, that student would be earning their science seal as well. Technology seal, when you're looking at this, earn a score of equivalent or proficient on an AP or IB test, earn a B or higher in a qualifying CCP technology course, and then complete a technology course that meets criteria established by the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. This one gets a little bit more technical because you're really looking at those advanced science classes and or computer science. So one of the things we always like to tell people is go back to your EMIS coordinator or whoever's doing your EMIS work, and that'll be a great resource in helping to understand that. And as well, we have the direct link on there to making sure that your course qualifies if you're looking to use the technology seal. Once again, the local seals, we kind of already hit this before, but each community is going to be different and each school district is going to be different. So whatever your school district decides that they want to see for community service, they can locally define that. Same thing with student engagement, same thing with fine and performing arts. So when you look at these are going to be a local decision, and it's not going to be a one size fits all that we can say, hey, this is what's happening across the entire state. And one quick reminder again, when you're looking at it, at least one of the seals has to be from the state. You can't have two local seals. So if a student hits your community service and they also hit the student engagement, well, that's great. They can earn more than two seals, but they have to then get a third seal that would be from the state seal section, which is that first grouping or portion of seals we went over. Once again, refer back to the chart. It's easy to see the line of demarcation between the two. And then, we're getting to the end there. So if we're talking about, okay, I had a student, and at that point in time, the student is in a place where they have not earned their credits or their course requirements, and they're on an IEP, they're a student with disability. At this point in time, there are some things in place that the state has in Ohio, and also that's in Ohio Revised Code when we're looking at this, that could be an option to consider. One of the things, and before I jumping into this, I do want to say almost backwards to what's on the slide is, the option that we're going to be talking about here should only be used in the most, unique circumstances. So we want the students in general to be getting the best possible educational resources and opportunities and in their least restrictive environment. And at that point, having access to everything that any student would be having access to concerning their coursework. But in a significant situation, you may have a student with a disability where the IEP team can come together and at that point in time determine that the students, completion of the IEP or the goals on the IEP, that at this point in time meets the curricular requirements. So if the student didn't meet that and it's at that point in time applicable, once again, I do want to stress that this isn't something that is, should be considered in a average to low intensity situation. This would be probably the most significant of the most significant students that have needs. So this isn't something that you're going to want to be exploring with every single student that's on an IEP. This would be something only reserved for those very, very unique circumstances that, where it is, appropriate, I guess is the best word. Let's continue down this path. What happens if a student with a disability has not met the competency requirements? So we go that they take their state test the first time, they don't get the required score. At that point in time, they participate in remediation, and at the next testing opportunity, our testing window, they sit again. And at that point in time, after participating in the remediation, they still don't get the score that's required for competency. At that point in time, an IEP team can come together and look at excusing the student from the consequences of the testing portion or the competency portion. One of the things that I would say as well that is the big caveat, which is the paragraph at the bottom, is that you would want to make sure that this is done after you've exhausted every resource in that alternative pathway. So those alternative pathways that we went over to competency, you would want to make sure that, hey, there is no possible way, because you want the student to have that opportunity to earn the regular diploma or the typical diploma. And once again, why is that? Because you want the student to have all the options available to them as any peer that would walk through that door of that building and that school district and be able to be engaged in the best way possible in the least restrictive environment. Once again, when we say this, is that this would be under only very significant situation, and once again when it's appropriate. So this isn't something that you're looking to, for, just to hand out willy-nilly. This would be something that would be, when it's appropriate and applicable, have that conversation with the IEP team. And at that point in time, see if it is appropriate. When it comes to readiness, the readiness options for the readiness does not have a clear alternative for a student with disability, but it is the two things that we did hit on with citizenship seal. If the student did participate in the alternate assessment, and they do earn the score of basic, then they qualify for that citizenship seal. And the same thing for the science seal. If they did do the alt assessment for for science at that point in time, if they earned the basic score, then they would earn that science seal. And I think these last three slides, one of the biggest things or a reminder to everybody is that there's only one diploma in Ohio. So whichever pathway a student takes, they're going to still receive that same diploma. However, if the student doesn't follow the pathway that's outlined by the state, they can't, as a district, count that student or as a state as a graduate in the federal special education graduation rate. So the areas where this comes into play is that, that 3 slides ago, if you use the IEP team comes together and they're saying we are using the completion of the IEP or IEP goals to meet the curricular requirements, then at that point in time, the student will get the diploma for if that's what is holding them back for meeting the course requirements. But at that point in time, they would not count for the actual federal graduation rate. Same thing, example number 2 is participating in the alternate assessment. Alternate assessment, student meets the competency scores on the alternate assessment and has their credits and has their 2 seals. They're going to get their Ohio diploma. They're just not going to count for the federal special education graduation rate. And then lastly, the third one is being exempt from, the consequences or earning the required score on the competency portion or the state test that we're looking at. So if a student at that point in time doesn't meet those scores and you've come together as an IEP team to say that, hey, they weren't able to make it through any of those 4 alternative options, so we're going to excuse them from the consequences of the, state testing scores. That student would get the diploma if they have their credits and they have the 2 seals, and that takes their place of the competency, but they just wouldn't count for the federal special education graduation rate. And once again, there is the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce Graduation Decision-Making Tool. We have that linked up. It is basically takes you step by step through question by question. At this point is something that we'll just pull it up real quickly that has all the same information that we just went over in the last few slides. So feel free. The first page kind of talks and gives the background information. When you start to get to the actual decision-making tree, it's going to walk you through step by step of yes, no, and then you just follow the tree all the way down to the bottom. I know most of you, have probably seen this, but for those of you that may be brand new in your first year, this would be something that would be good to, pull out, take a look at, open up the link, or maybe with your department head or a veteran teacher, just go over it, read through, see if there's anything that's, standing out or anything that causes any questions. When we look at this, that kind of brings us to the end. I know that has been a lot of information that's being provided to you. At this point, if there is, if you could fill out the feedback link on the presentation today, please go ahead and enter that information in there now before you get off the call, because generally once the call ends, at that point in time, you're then the likelihood of getting that done is not going to happen. So we appreciate the feedback to make it better. And then I have a couple of things here when we're looking at this. If there's any questions, I'm going to have my information up on the last slide. If there's something that, hey, you didn't feel comfortable either maybe staying on the call or you're time constrained right now, shoot me an email, give me a phone call. More than happy to help out. Also, that link should be in our chat as well from before when we were talking about the feedback. I guess I'll go to that slide right here. At this point, Melissa, if you want to go ahead and end the recording and then